So hi everyone. On today's AI insurance session, I'm happy to welcome Kit Cox, who is the founder and CTO of Enate. Enate, and we'll hear a little bit about them in a moment. They focus on the process and orchestration to B2B services, providing software, and it's really about orchestrating work across the human and digital workforce. Kit is an engineer by trade, so maybe one of the first of that background on this session. And in the background kind of bio prep, you maybe help me with this, Kit. It said you like cooking up a storm, and I wasn't quite sure if that's making problems in boardrooms or it's you in the kitchen.
It's a good bit of both, you know. So no, I like to cook, and I've always said that success in growing Enate will be when I'm nervous about cooking for the whole company,
It's good to
and we're about there now. Yeah.
so other than my intro, maybe kind of just give a bit about yourself and also importantly kind of Innate.
Yeah, sure. So like I say, I'm a manufacturing engineer by sort of training and initial jobs, and a software developer by hobby and then career. And really, we founded Innate, and what we've set about doing is building a platform to manage the future of service delivery.
Mhm.
Yeah, and where service delivery in the B2B world starts with obviously starts with an end client, but then gets delivered by maybe initially a human workforce, a carbon-based workforce, but over time, the blend between carbon and silicon-based workforce changes. And we're seeing that, yeah. We predicted what would happen there when we set out to to do what we do now in 2017, and we're seeing it play out more and more as large language models came along, and then agentic AI is all of a bubble and froth of excitement. Yeah. But that change between carbon and silicon, that is what service delivery is going to be over the next few years.
And how are you maybe obviously it sounded like you got ahead of the game a little bit by kind of building something that you knew was coming, but also still being able to service that carbon workforce. That kind of like
Yeah. Yeah, many people say that's a really daft way to go about building a business
oh,
to solve
well,
a problem that isn't there yet. But
well, it worked. So
yeah, but
let's
it
see
has
that.
worked. Yeah, exactly.
But what are maybe some of the trigger points you're seeing in people's need desires, customers' needs desires for operating a workforce? So what are some of the signals that you're seeing that organizations are ready for that?
So we're seeing it's one of those things that you get from a board. You get a bunch of top-down pressure coming at operations people going, we need to be more automated. We need to be slicker. We need to be more flawless. And then you get a whole bunch of bottom-up complexity that makes that difficult because particularly in service delivery organizations, but complex service organizations, so the more complex ends of insurance lines, for example, yeah, the degree of variability you have and the degree of uh, communication to and fro you have around the service quite often makes automation quite tricky. So you get this push from both directions, causing a bit of a bottleneck. And the challenge is less of a technical one,
Mhm.
and it's more of a organizational one about how do you operationalize to deliver this? How do you operationalize to deliver this aspiration of the board? Yeah. And all too frequently, it's it's down to lack of control in the way that the service is delivered in the first place. That's the underlying cause of why it's difficult to operationalize. So we've got when we engage with our clients, we have a pretty methodical approach. They go, don't try and automate stuff to begin with. It goes, uh, operationalize, get control of what you do. Yeah. Optimize. Yeah. Actually use the data that you now have from getting control to make what you do slightly better and to organize the way that you do it slightly better. And then start automating based upon that data that you have and in a deliberate structure. Because Otherwise, you just end up automating what your noisiest colleague says they want automated, not something that actually is going to deliver material value.
And maybe obviously where you service a few different markets, are there any nuances or themes that you're seeing specifically in the insurance space?
So we're seeing some things in with our insurance customers, which are, particularly in the they're in the, complex life end of the market, and we're seeing things in that space where there is a need for sophistication around technologies like intelligent document processing, which vanilla versions of that tend to be not fit for the job. Yeah. And the simple versions of that tend to be not fit for the job. There is a huge need to manage the broker interaction,
Hmm.
particularly for those broker-backed businesses, in a more elegant way. Yeah. In a way that prevents stuff falling down the cracks and also keeps it keeps the operations team in the insurer focused on the important stuff, not the noise that a broker might be generating, and being able to using AI to distinguish between what is noise and what is input, what is actually value is really we're finding really useful in there.
And a moment ago, you mentioned about that kind of coming together. I don't want to use
Yeah.
that word, and you kind of talk about the board's top table saying that this is something that we should be doing. And I think, as you and I know, AI is probably one of the broadest topics, of which there's many technologies that sit within that. But is there anything that you're seeing, actually insurance or not? Because I think this will be
Mm.
where kind of boards are getting it right, where in the way in which they're strategizing and outlining the goals for what their organization should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are a few things that we see as common themes amongst those who are being successful, and the counter amongst those who aren't. Uh, Number one is giving your AI initiative to your IT department to do doesn't work. Yeah. So, because quite a lot of it is anathema to the way that the IT industry has built up over time. The IT industry is built up based upon building systems, building machines that are perfectly testable and completely deterministic, as in known input gives known output. And when you come into this IT world, yeah, into a group of maybe senior architects who have been taught to think like that for the entirety of their careers and go, we want to go wide with a whole bunch of stuff that's non-deterministic, it doesn't compute. Mentally for that group of people, it does not compute. So actually, success in operationalizing AI into the business is something that has to come from wide scale ground up rather than
Mhm.
going, here's our geek person. They should be in charge of geek things. AI sounds like a geek thing to me. Yeah.
As a geek person, you're allowed to say that. That's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. I do totally self-qualify as a geek. Uh, so that is the number one thing that we see failing. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we see success where organizations really are giving that wide push to go, no, this is everybody's job. It's not just that, little central cabal's job. Yes, there is a role. Yeah, look, there is a role for some geekery in it, in particularly in controlling where data is going.
Mhm.
But that's about it. Yeah.
So actually, one of my questions I was going to ask was about how are you seeing it being owned? But actually, I think that's quite good. You've covered where ownership should not sit. So
It needs to be owned by every single leader in the business. Yeah. There should not be an HR person that is not thinking about operationalizing AI. There should not be a manufacturing person that isn't thinking about operationalizing AI. There shouldn't be a product designer who isn't thinking about it, an engineer who isn't thinking about it, a marketing person who isn't thinking about it. Everybody should be thinking about how they're operationalizing it.
and how do you see that bubbling up to ensure that the whole organisation's kind of rowing in the same direction. They're not taking and choosing different tools that maybe won't work together longer term. Because I think, um, yeah, just interested on that because I fully kind of
Mhm.
succumb to the notion of organisations. I was talking to actually one of these interviews. It was this notion of if a team or department aren't exploring this, they're going to get left behind. So
Yeah.
this entrepreneurial nature within the people and organisations within the business to drive AI forward, I think is the way to go. I think maybe the thing I'm is the next step on that is actually how do you start to bring it together, and maybe orchestration is as
Yeah.
you know is part of that.
And I think mentally you have to compartmentalize these things into two areas. There is the AI yeah, so let's that our marketing people are using, that our sales people are using, that our product engineers are using. That's something that is, you know, that is tends to be supportive of the individual. It's actually quite safe to deploy
Hmm.
because those are environments where before you push marketing material out, it tends to go through a bunch of edits, zero risk. Yeah. Before you push software out, it goes through screeds of testing, pretty much zero risk. Yeah. But actually, where you're deploying AI into the operational meat and potatoes of service delivery, where you're deploying into that area, then you are much more likely to need something that's slightly more tightly controlled.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that is where orchestration really comes to bear. Yeah. Because you need to bring your AI workforce and your human workforce into a collaborative environment, but also where you can trust the AI to do some of the relevant things in the dark whilst keeping control of the end-to-end execution of a customer journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the blend that you got to strike. Yeah.
And I quite like the compartmentalize piece because I think again, the problem of people talking about AI and AI initiatives, again, it's around actually what's the outcome or desire you're looking to achieve from this. Again, someone else was saying it's around AI isn't the hammer that you should run around looking to hit things with. Start with the problem, start with the opportunities, and work out how or if AI can help. But you mentioned brokers a couple of times. You mentioned you dropped the LLM word in, and you also mentioned intelligent document processing. So maybe what are some of the in the vein of insurance, some of the success stories you're seeing people starting or evolving with AI on?
Sure. If you look at a service value chain, yeah, whether it's an insurance service value chain or a financial services value chain or a medical services value chain, actually the value chain looks pretty similar in all cases. Yeah. The Pretty much every service has got three steps to delivering it. Yeah. The first step is figure out which of the services you deliver your customer is asking you to deliver to them. Yeah.
Hmm.
And simple. Yeah. But ironically, that's one of those things uh, that doctors train many, many years to do. For some services, is really difficult. In the insurance space, that's less difficult because there are only so many things that people can ask you to do. So at that early stage, that first stage of figuring out what customers are asking you to do, it's quite easy to deploy uh, AI use cases around categorization. So that all of the communications coming into your service delivery organization actually just automatically go to the right people
Yeah.
to to work on them. It's very easy to deploy sentiment analysis. Yeah. So particularly where you're in a business where the satisfaction of your middlemen, yeah, is actually quite important to your ongoing growth. Yeah. Uh, in that world, actually being able to assess the sentiment of of your customers or your brokers in real time, rather than doing a 6 monthly net promoter score kind of survey, you get fantastic value out of that because you can act and drive change before you actually get a real problem occurring. Yeah. So at that first stage, bunch of AI use cases easy to deploy. Yeah. The second stage of delivering every service is assemble the data to do what your customer, you've figured out what they want. Now you've got to assemble the data to do what they're asking you to do. Yeah. Now in insurance world, that comes from two sources pretty much. It comes from your policy systems and it comes from what they've sent you. Yeah. It comes from the documents and the emails and whatever other communications they have sent you, plus your underlying systems. Yeah. So, but actually to get those two sources of data into a functioning data set where you can do stuff with them, you've got a intelligent document processing challenge to take the semi-structured stuff that has come in on paper or in a PDF or in an email into something that is structured. Yeah, that's what intelligent document processing is there for. And the right intelligent document processing technology, if you get that slotted into your orchestration, then whenever you see a new document coming in, it'll go, firstly, go and figure out what type of document it is. Is it a copy of somebody's passport? Is it a surrender form? Is it a claim? Yeah. And then the second bit will go, right, now I know what it is. Go and suck the relevant bits of data out of it. That's what intelligent document processing does. Yeah. And then whilst we're in that assemble the data stage, yes, I can go and you can just go and do integration into your underlying system to go, right, suck some more data out of that, go and give me the basics of this policy information. But then you need to make a whole bunch of decisions. Yeah. Then you need to go and apply some, whether you call it a standard operating procedure, whether you call it a policy that describes the rules. Yeah. So the words you use depends on the business you're in. Yeah. But essentially, you have a set of rules, a policy that describes should I pay this claim? Yeah. You have a set of rules, a policy that says, can I execute on this life insurance surrender?
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, in the olden days, a couple of years ago, uh, you would used to have to, if you wanted to automate that policy, that rules set, you would go and spend a whole bunch of time encoding it in some kind of business process management or rules engine. And then you would have to be getting a bunch of techies to do that. That time has now passed because the AI use case there is to use analyst AI. Yeah, so we call this an AI analyst use case. So it's something where you bring a large language model, yeah, probably a dry one that you haven't necessarily gone and fine tuned, yeah, and you apply that with your policy, your set of rules written in language, to the data that you have brought from your underlying systems and you have extracted from what's come in from your clients. Yeah. And then you go, great, based upon this stuff, this form that this broker has filled out, and this information that we have from our policy management system, and this set of rules described in English, what should I do? Should I go pay it? Should I go and ask the broker for some more information because they haven't given me enough?
Hmm.
Should I go and do a further KYC check because uh, we appear to be surrendering this to somebody that's now changed their residence? Or yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that AI use case is really powerful there. Yeah. So that's something that typically, you're either doing that in just getting people to do that at the moment, right? They understand that policy in their heads, yeah, and they go and fetch the data and go make my decision, or in the more transactional lines, you've gone and done something that is much more mechanically automated of that, yeah. Uh, so that is a very powerful use case that we're starting to see success with now. Yeah, and that's before you get into agentic stuff. Yeah, that's the pre-processing for agentic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a black word, just a barbed word. You're not allowed to mention that one on. Otherwise, we start to ask you actually, what does agentic actually mean? And that's a podcast in its own.
Yeah, it's a podcast. That's something in its own right. Yeah, exactly. It's yeah. I and it is funny because there is so much excitement about agentic fairy dust. Yeah. Uh, there are definitely going to be times this year where we have the agentic AI version of the my Tesla autopilot crashed my car
Hmm.
stories. Yeah. Because people are going to be playing with and launching assorted AI agents in a way that they haven't defined a safe playpen for them to work within. Yeah. And unless you can control the space that an agent has agency across, then your agent breaks stuff. Yeah. So that when we come to understand the how does orchestration and agentic AI play together, orchestration is about controlling the space that your the agent has agency across. That's the fundamental message about it. Yeah. It's about creating a safety area that stops the agent going bananas.
That sounds like a marketing activity, a marketing label. There we go. Stop bananas.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of insight around. I quite like the services model approach, and I think kind of the way in which you approach engagements, and then obviously the role that orchestration plays. But I mean, anything else you'd like to end with before we finish today?
But I mean, I think the simple message is this actually. If you are looking to really operationalize AI in that service delivery environment, so not in the places where it's essentially zero risk marketing technology, but in that service delivery environment, then you won't really be successful unless you're understanding how orchestration and the AI use cases play together. Yeah. That's really how you drive material value.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you will just be doing random acts of automation and random acts of risk creation in that space.
random risk creation. Right, I'm taking that. I'm taking carbon
Yeah.
and silicon workforce as well. But yeah, Kit, yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
No worries, Danny. Great to see you. Great to be talking again.